Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I know you like both of us together, so this will be a conversation more than a sermon. And I know you guys are in Matthew 10, and we are, in light of doing Matthew 10, we're going to go to Luke 10. So, because it speaks of the same, it's the same dialogue. If you're in Matthew 10, it talks about Jesus sending out the 72, and he has a lot of descriptors as far as for them to be obedient and as they go to take no purse and all these things. But I do want to spend just a moment looking at Luke 10 because I think it speaks to what we want to talk about today.
Okay.
Do you want to read it?
Sure.
Why don't you read
Luke 10 verses 1 through
right through there.
12. So it says, "After this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. He told them, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Go, I am sending you out like lambs among wolves. Do not take a purse or bag or sandals, and do not greet anyone on the road. When you enter a house, first say, "Peace to this house." If someone who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest on them. If not, it will return to you. Stay there, eating and drinking whatever they give you, for the worker deserves his wages. Do not move around from house to house. When you enter a town and are welcomed, eat what is offered to you. Heal the sick who are there, and tell them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. But when you enter a town and are not welcomed, go into its streets and say, even the dust of your town we wipe from our feet as a warning to you. Yet be sure of this, the kingdom of God has come near. I tell you, it will be more bearable on that day for Sodom than for that town."
Okay. So, when I look at this passage as far as kind of the marching orders for evangelism, there's some interesting nuances that Jesus states that kind of go against our way in which maybe we were brought up as far as looking at how to promote the kingdom or how to promote the church, how to bring people on in. You know, our typical MO or the way we operate has been, I mean, if you were to sum it up as far as how do we share our faith and how we bring others close to the kingdom, what's been the operational mode in which we work?
Well, I guess it's opposite of this. To me, the way I understand it is we go out and invite people in, and in this way, he's asking them to go out and look to be invited in. So it's opposite. It's looking for people who are willing to entertain you, or and I don't mean that in a party thing. It's more of a welcoming. So that's how I see it differently.
Yeah, one of the things he mentions too, he says, if you see someone on the street, don't even talk to them. Mm-hmm. I know that would be really difficult for me. Michaela and the boys, whenever we go out,
we can't leave because if there are people, he will speak to them.
Yeah. So I would probably be raising my hand saying, Jesus, can we think of how about this road thing? Can we at least talk to these people? Because I think this would be important. Yeah, this whole thing, I think this whole thing of finding, how do they term it, a house of peace and Luke spends time talking about this. Matthew talks about finding peace, but Luke in particular goes into talking about finding a house of peace. And the Hebrew word is shalom. And there's a concept, and I'm trying to get into, Jesus gives a little bit of insight into, why to go into these places and kind of set yourself there and don't leave there. What do you think the unspoken way of things that he's dealing with here, in the sense of he wants us to be able to, the work is worth his wages. He talks about that. That is very overt. But there are subtleties as far as what it means to go into someone's home and to stay there, or finding a house of peace. If you were to kind of pull that apart and go, well, why this mode of operation here, Jesus? Does that make sense?
I'm having a little difficulty with your question.
It was 45 seconds long.
I think you're getting at, like, what does it reveal about people when they are willing to entertain? When they're willing, there's a heart behind this shalom where you are willing to give of yourself. You're willing to meet other people's needs. And it seems to me, he's sending them out, the 72, to towns that he was going to visit. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a way of really preparing people, even identifying those people who already had a heart position of serving and welcoming and meeting the needs of others, which is what the kingdom of God is all about.
Right.
Is that what you were getting at?
I think so. That was my question. But yeah, I do think this is important. Is kind of being able to look and define households that God has already been present working in. And I think this is the big difference, is that in the past, I would look at people and go, well, God has definitely drawn you, but you really are coming from a clean slate. You don't really know a lot.
I see what you're saying. So I think in the way I used to interact with people, I felt like I was the introduction mm-hmm. to the kingdom for them. And I think what I've learned, and where I now am in a place of thinking, is God has been at work in people's lives for a really long time. And I am just being able to intercept or be part of that. I know we use the word journey a lot, but God has already been working in someone's life. I mean, I think of our daughter-in-law who, at the age of 6, would go out on the balcony of her house and pray that God would just listen to her. And so when she was finally met by someone who introduced her to the God of the Bible, that wasn't the first time that she had interacted with God. Mm-hmm. She had been interacting with God in her prayers from the time she was 6 years right. old. And so I think that's something I've become convinced of. And actually, it makes me really excited to talk to people, because then I can learn more. Like, maybe that's what these 72 were doing. They were entering these homes and hearing already how God had been softening a heart or moving a heart towards him. And then they were able to just join them on that journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked about these words like journey, but also partnering with God. I think that's been a real important concept for us, is how do we join him? Because he's the Lord of the harvest. He's already done the massively hard work. So we're just there to identify.
Reaping.
We're reapers, but we're identifying. I just got back from Idaho, which is on the west coast of the U.S. on a fire, and I drove through a Native American reservation, which is called the Nez Perce, and it's just miles and miles as far as it looked like Kansas, which is our wheat get and the harvest is obvious. And they're beginning to get into that mode of harvest. It's August, late August. They're beginning to get in that mode. But someone else, I look at it and go, someone else has done this work. This is all they have to do is just get in there and go, man, there are people who are prepared.
So a lot has been done before a harvest. When he says the harvest is plentiful, if they're at a point of harvest, someone's already prepared the ground, someone's already planted the seeds, someone has already watered, and it's taken time before they're finally in a place of mm-hmm. harvesting. So lots of work has been done before. And I guess I used to think it was my work that was the most important. Mm-hmm. is and bringing in the harvest is important. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think I gave as much, what's the word I want?
I don't know.
I don't think I really realized how much work God had already been doing in someone's life beforehand.
It's true. I think of this whole concept of when he says, "Go and find a house of peace and a house of shalom." And so, if you were to identify, if you walked into a home to say, "Does this home meet those specifications that Jesus pointed out?" What would be identifiers or characteristics of that home? So you walk into a home, and this is for us too, as we're looking in Bulgaria, we're looking at families and communities. What would be an identifiers as far as those elements that say, this is a home of peace? Does it mean it's quiet all the time? Does it mean it's...
Well, I think there is a lack of strife.
Okay.
I think there is a communication of goodness and I think for
hospitality.
me, certainly
probably, yeah.
Hospitality, lack of strife, and you don't feel like you're in imposition. Like there's not a sense of tension in that home.
And if there is, there are always issues, but there's reconciliation. You see them working it out. There may be, there may be things will come up, but you see them work it out. You're like, I have confidence that this family is together and they're going to work that out.
There's a respect for one another, an honoring of one another.
Yeah, and so as I've looked at this, why would these homes of peace be so important to the way Jesus wanted the message to get out? And for us today, is it applicable for the ways that we look at Sophia, we look at Raleigh, North Carolina, we look at our neighborhoods, to identify homes of peace and say, God has a plan. God is working in this place. They may not be God believers, but God is absolutely behind these the messengers in there. It's just been things I've been thinking about, as far as how God will expand. I mean, when you think in the New Testament, as far as homes that were used by God, Book of Acts, you guys can probably talk about it too. Book of Acts, what are some homes that were found out to be just blossomed with people becoming Christians in those homes, and were homes of peace.
Cornelius.
Yeah, Acts 10, Cornelius. That was obviously God working in that space.
The Philippian jailer. He brought Paul into his home.
That's a good one. And there was hospitality. The Philippian jailer's wife had no concept of all the goings on that was happening. All she knew were 2 prisoners were brought into her house, and she had a characteristic or a character to her to say, I can bring them out. I'm not fearful. I trust this. I trust my husband. I'm okay with this, and we'll wipe their wounds down. We'll feed them. We'll do this, even if it means our family he gets killed later or something. I don't know. It's just amazing to see this. Lydia, I think Lydia was a home that she was a businesswoman, but she probably had a network. And from these, I think God understands that the family relationships, people will just naturally want to become Christians because they're just people who are all connected through this. There's a core elemental group there that's receptive, I think, to people becoming Christians. Let's spin this now for you guys as people are joining the group here in the family in Sophia, and also as Revive is looked at to come by, there'll be more young people who join and give their lives over to God. How does this verse, or these verses in Luke 10, apply to us in becoming a house of shalom? Like looking at the Sophia Church as a house of shalom, where reconciliation happens and all those things. I just wanted to put that out there. I have no question for you, but let's shift it a little bit to maybe the house church that meets here at our home, and for you guys with Sophia. You have any thoughts on that? I have no question, but
well, I just think about relationships in our own neighborhood where we have gotten to know our neighbors and tried to walk in this way and just walk with people. And so, like, I have a neighbor down the road that I've gotten to know. We've had some really incredible conversations, and it's been interesting to, like, I think in the past, I would maybe open my door or have interaction with people to the extent like, here's my house key, use my house whenever you want, would be within our own little group, maybe the church that meets at our house. But she's someone who we have that kind of relationship. I can give her my key and just say, do you mind while we're out of town checking on my house? And she'll do that. At one point, she picked up our kids from the airport because we were unavailable. So there's a back and forth nature of our relationship where it's gone deeper than just waving at one another. It's, I have welcomed you into my home. You've welcomed me into your home. It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's, and I think that's the kind of relationships that I think in the past I would have had much more of a compartmentalized view of relationships. Like, this is a person I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, God, how do you want me to partner with you so that we are having this relationship that goes beyond just waving, kind of thing. So,
no, it's good.
To answer your non-question.
My non-question. I want to throw something else out too. And again, Jesus doesn't specify this in this verse, but I think there's, if we were to spend time with him talking about, hey, Jesus, why these specifications as far as how we go out? He may have spoken about the aspect of becoming a guest rather than a host. Mm-hmm. We call it flipped hospitality. And there's a difference.
There's a vulnerability.
There's a vulnerability because you've got to
rely on someone else to meet your need.
And you've got to study them to like what's important, what's okay within the house, reading the room, so to speak. So it takes a lot more energy and humility to be a guest. And we see Jesus doing that all the time. When he saw Zacchaeus,
he invites himself in.
Always invites himself. Zacchaeus, I'm going to your house today. And I think that shows his humility, even to the point where he became man in the form of a baby and grew up. He became a guest within humanity. Mm-hmm. And that's humility, because he had to walk within that construct, within that framework, to understand us. To where Hebrews says that he's able to understand us because he's been through everything. Mm-hmm. So a guest is able to do that. If I'm hosting, I've got other distractions.
You're in control.
I'm in control, but also I can go up to my room and I say, hey guys, I'm going to bed. As a guest, you feel like, no, I'm more engaged. So it's really interesting, this whole element of putting yourself, what Jesus said, go to a house and stay there, prepare that. Maybe to become areas where it can really, the kingdom can expand, So it's very interesting.
And it does reveal the heart as a host. Like these people, they went into their home. It reveals the heart when someone says, gosh, my sandals, I've been walking a while and I didn't bring any extra pair. For the host to then step up and say, oh, well, let me fix them for you, or let me get them for you. Like looking for a way to meet a need just reveals the heart.
Anyway, we're at about 20 minutes, so we're going to finish up. But I wanted to just finish with this is something that just popped out. Jesus in verse, verse 12, he talks about those who those homes that won't entertain, that won't bring them in. He has some kind of harsh words for them. He says, it will be more bearable on that day for Sodom than it was for that town. And that's shocking because he's basically talking about a town that won't receive them and won't be hospitable and won't engage. I don't know how often we've looked at hospitality as a place that fire and brimstone that happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. That was part of the issue of Sodom and Gomorrah, it wasn't a town that provided that hospitality. And obviously the sexual perversion, the Apostle Paul picks up on that in Romans 1, which is obviously there, but Sodom was also known as a place that wasn't receptive to that. And so
it was
inhospitable. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up and look at this in Matthew 10, but also in Luke 10 today for all of us, is that it's two ways. I want us to find those homes of peace as you guys are looking within your neighborhoods. Look for houses and homes that's not necessarily are God lovers. It'd be great if they are, but homes that have a dynamic where they love each other. There's a connection, and share this with them. I would share stuff saying, maybe God is preparing something for you, and then also for us as a church in Sophia, and for us, we see that with our house church, is becoming this. If there is strife or there is issues within Sophia Church, reconcile, learn how to become that. And I think you guys are a house of peace. I think you've worked through things, but we can become so much more than that. And so I think there's a lot in here. Matthew 10 is filled with things. You're probably going to need to preach about it again, but I just wanted to focus in on a couple things here. So love getting with you guys, and have a great Sunday. And
it's great to see you.
Yep, love you. Bye.